the professional learning on the job has been a path that I've had to really struggle with over the last, I don't know, working really hard from going in the business and not being glamorous and not being, a beauty queen and all of that, and really struggling to build my craft because I felt that always the work speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. And you have to be so good that they have to hire you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. I'm so thrilled to be here today with three of the actors who are nominated at the SAG Awards for Outstanding Female Actor in a Drama Series. Please welcome from Bridgerton, Nicola Coughlan, from Matlock,
Hello.
Kathy Bates, and from Shōgun, Anna Sawai. Thank you all so much for being here.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
This is an audience of your fellow actors watching this. So I love to go back to the beginning and sort of ask, what was your first job as an actor? The first time, you were bit by the bug. And Nicola and Anna, I think you started really young, like when you were 10 or 11.
I started when I was 10. I auditioned for a musical. That was my beginning. What about you, Nicola?
Yeah, I was 9. I auditioned. James Brolin came to Galway and was auditioning for a film that Josh Brolin was in, and they needed a little girl who could do a Northern Irish accent, which I actually couldn't do at the time, so I didn't get that part. But I was an extra on the movie, and I got to shoot a scene on my own and feed swans, and I was like, this is amazing. I remember getting paid £35, and I felt super rich, and I was like, wow, okay.
Anna, what was the play you did?
So it was for Annie. So I did a small musical before that, but Annie was the big audition. I know, wait, Kathy, you were in the movie, Annie. So I feel so connected there. I auditioned once. I didn't get the role. I had to audition. I practiced 365 days the next year, and I got the role to play Annie. So I felt that was the time that I learned that if you put in the work that you can actually achieve your dreams. And that's pushed me on till today. But yeah, Kathy, I'm so excited because you played Mrs. Hannigan.
No, I'm glad we get to share this. It's wonderful.
I don't mean to insert myself, but I was Lily St. Regis, if you guys want to do a Lizzie Street number
wow.
in high school.
I feel like Annie is something that a lot of people do when you're getting into the industry or when you're in the industry. So yeah, it's so exciting to share the same project with a lot of people.
Yes, it is. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I admire your work so much, and I got to see you in Bridgerton, Nicola, and it's a wonderful character, one that I identify with Miss Featherington because I was a bit of I was a wallflower for most of my life, so I really identified with her. It was a very touching performance.
Oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed. I can't. So surreal to be here with both of you. You're both so brilliant. I feel very much like a competition winner, I think. But it's a great part that I feel really lucky. It's lovely to be on a returning show and get to come back and do something different each time. And that's something it's great being on like a Shondaland show because they write complicated women, and that's so much fun because it's never just one thing you have to do. It's always something new, and I love that. Yeah.
And Kathy, for you, what was sort of your first job in this business?
Well, in the business, when I got paid the first time was in theater. I did story theater in Washington, D.C. I got the job there, and my first professional contract, I got to play a duck, and my contract said duck and others. So we traveled all over and performed for kids in Virginia and North Carolina for over a whole season, which was from early fall until the spring. So it was quite cold, and we traveled around in a van. And so that was my first, professional theater job, which is really what I thought I would be doing is theater. And then my first movie job was quite by accident, Milos Forman's first American film, Taking Off. And I had used to play the guitar, and I'd written a song, And one of my roommates was cooking for them, for Milos and John Guare. And so they said, do you know any girls who play the guitar and have their own songs? And so she recommended me. And so I had my first appearance in his film. It was just my song. And then I was able to do a proper film with Dustin Hoffman called Straight Time. And so it was a bit of a long, it's all been a bit of a long journey, from education and theater. And, one of the things, I know you're running this, Jenelle, but I wondered if I'm interested to hear about the training that you guys have, and also the evolution of the craft as we've moved through the last few, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I am. Do you all have theater backgrounds, Nicola? I wasn't sure if you did or not.
Yes.
Okay.
It's funny because I sort of started in film and TV, because I had my drama teacher when I was a kid was my agent. So it's funny, I sort of started the wrong way around, I guess. And then I trained here in the UK. I went to the Oxford School of Drama and did a foundation course after university. And that was really great because it sort of gave me time to try it. Because, it's a very different thing thinking, I think I'd like to do this as a job to jumping off and going, I'm really definitely going to try and do this. So I did, at Oxford, I remember doing a lot of improv. That was a huge thing that we did, and it was really freeing. And because we were foundation course students, it was a bit more playful, and they weren't sort of putting us out into the world to act straight away. So I loved that. And then I went and I did my master's at Birmingham School of Acting. And it was sort of classical British training that they had here. But it's funny, even now, I think that's already changed so much. I was doing singing lessons the other day, and every technique that I'd been taught at drama school is completely outmoded now. And I go, gosh, it's not that long ago. But yeah, it's amazing the way things move on, I guess.
And Anna, I think you sort of traveled all over when you were younger. I don't know where it began for you.
Well, I was born in New Zealand, and then I went to Japan, Hong Kong, Philippines, back to Japan when I was 10. And in Japan, you don't really, at least I don't really know a lot of people who've been to acting schools. I think it's a little bit more minor. And so I just went to a normal university, studied something completely different, and I was just in the business and learning on set. And so I have this weird thing of like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing it properly. And there's a part of me that wishes that I did go through the whole training, but I'm here. So I'm so interested in learning about all this, the schools and what you went through.
Do you sort of consider it on-the-job training, though? Because I don't know if school can really prepare you for having a giant camera in front of your face while someone shoots an arrow at you.
I No, the training that I want is to feel confident in the work that I'm doing, because right now I'm just doing it by instinct, and now I have a coach, but I feel like for the longest time I was so unsure. And if you go to school, you're like, okay, I know this. We've, practiced it with my schoolmates, and, you've performed in front of your class and all of that. And so I want that confidence. And right now, I feel like I'm learning every day on the job, and it's so amazing because, the people you like, it's the best class ever because everyone's professional and everyone knows what they're doing except for me. So, no, it's a lot of fun, and I feel like I'm really lucky that I get to learn on set, because that also is, very, not everyone gets to do that.
Can I insert in there too? And I don't know if you've had the experience. I mean, Nicola, you've had that excellent UK training, which is phenomenal. It's the best. And just to follow up on what you were talking about, I had the same training in terms of going to school, and it turned into a proper conservatory at Southern Methodist University. And we did period styles, Greek, Chekhov, Shakespeare, all of that stuff, not improv so much like you were talking about, Nicola. But I did find it difficult going into actually professional. We were all talking when we got to New York, all of us went, and how it was so different from school because we didn't have the experience of working professionally. And it's also different when you get there. I mean, I'm sure you're experiencing maybe it in a different, like a reverse situation. You're going back to the training. But I think that the professional learning on the job has been a path that I've had to really struggle with over the last, I don't know, working really hard from going in the business and not being glamorous and not being, a beauty queen and all of that, and really struggling to build my craft because I felt that always the work speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt make it really, you have to be so good that they have to hire you.
Mm.
No matter what you look like or whatever, that you that was my goal. So I think the onset practice, which I feel like every time I go out there, I'm learning. And now that I've been able to be an exec producer on Matlock, and I get to look at the episodes and put my 2 cents on, the performance and the editing, and I get to watch my, learn from what I'm doing, and all of that's so valuable. I think the evolution, maybe you all feel this way, that the evolution of our work and the evolution of the craft is what fascinates me.
Mm.
It's lovely. It's lovely. I think we have such a privilege with our job that we get to learn all the time. And it's like we have on Bridgerton, we have maybe 4 directors a season, and some of them come in, they go, "How do you like to work?" And I always want to go, "Oh, no, don't. I don't want to work a certain way because there's the chance to learn something and to do something a little differently." That then it's like I always think you have like a little toolkit that you get to add little things to and then bring it on to the next job and the next job. And I think even when you leave training, I certainly didn't feel ready or right, and I came at it the opposite way and that I'd worked before. And certainly, Kathy, to what you said, realizing, in training, going, this is amazing. And it's lovely to have the freedom to just play around and there be no sort of risk and no one's really watching. But then I thought to myself, I know though what it's like to be on a set, and I know that you don't have that freedom. So I think, it's interesting, but the actual skills you have to learn, I think, it's just being thrown in the deep end and learning as you go.
Also, you guys are working within the constraints of the specific period of your characters, which it puts a whole nother deal on it. Like Anna, you had to learn sword fighting and all of these other things, and the stillness of the period and the costumes. Both of you guys had to work within the constraints of the style of the period and of the costumes and all of it, which adds another aspect to it.
Yeah, and I think that in ways that is constraint, but also it made me learn so much more, and I was able to kind of leave myself out of it and just become the character, which is so important because now you're a completely different human being and it's so much more condensed. So I really love the aspect that it was so specific and so restraining in a way, like the way that we, the outfits that we're wearing, Nicola, like I know that you also
Yeah.
like you're in a corset and that just makes you physically become a different person. And so I loved it. And I feel like with any kind of work, even if it's a modern day woman that I play next, I want to be able to physically attack it because then that changes like the weight of everything. I don't know how you feel about it, Kathy. Like, how was it doing Matlock? Did you feel the freedom or did you feel like in a way that you wanted to physically embody your character?
Yes, because usually I play the sort of grand guignol, outsized, weird characters and stuff. And so it's been a challenge, but also a lot of fun to play like just a regular person, really, who's on a mission. But she's, sometimes it feels like nothing, like I'm not doing anything because I'm so used to doing such crazy stuff. But it's really fun to do that. But one thing I wanted to ask, because you talked about the different directors, Nicola. Did you have different directors for your series, Anna?
Yeah. I think we had maybe five, I would like to say. Some directors did 2 episodes, and then the rest were just solo directors. And so it was working with a lot of different people. And I think that it was hard for me in the beginning because I wasn't used to that. And, everyone has different styles, and some people are coming in early, and so you're setting it up with them. And then later on, the directors are coming in at episode 7, 8, and so it was pretty tough trying to find trying to find the right place to end up on with every single director. But I think that that really taught me so much, and like knowing my own character, knowing what I believe in, and if the director comes with a different opinion, to be able to say, hey, but I've been through this and I think that this is right. Like I had to sometimes fight for that too. And in a way, it was sort of reflecting Mariko because there's such strong belief that she has. And I think I kind of needed to do that because in Japanese culture, like we're taught to say yes to a lot of things. And uh, it's I working in Japan, in the industry in Japan, my manager would literally tell me, like, just say yes, that's the most mature thing to do. And so having to shed that part of myself and being comfortable with saying, I believe in this, was a challenge for me. And I'm glad that I experienced it because I feel like I've been able to like step one step forward now.
Mm.
Can I ask how you got to that place? Because it takes, I'm probably twice your age and I'm not there yet. And to be, so assured and to fight for yourself, is that something that someone taught you or that you've just always had?
I think I always had it and I still struggle with it. I think that I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable doing it. But leaving the industry in 2018 in Japan, leaving the Japanese industry, I still carry a lot of that because, I worked in Japan for 6, 7 years, and it really just kind of puts you in this mental state that, okay, like my opinion doesn't really matter. But I mean, seeing everyone, like seeing Kathy, seeing Nicola, seeing so many other women just be like, no, it's right. And like having that support to be okay with not being okay. I'm slowly getting out of my shell. And I think that the stories that we're also telling, for me, like playing Mariko was important because it wasn't going to be just another samurai TV show where the men had all the power and the women were just sitting by, in silence. It was more about like, okay, they're sitting in silence, but what are they feeling and what are they carrying? And that was so important to me. So I think that the work that we do also helps me be more confident in myself.
Well, that brings up just quickly. I don't mean to be monopolizing this, Jenelle, but there's one moment that just took my breath away in Shōgun when you're talking about breaking away from the constraints of the character. When Toranaga sends her to the final mission, and he's in the background, and you're walking toward the camera in an extreme close-up, and all of the repression that you've been holding in for the whole season, your face within it's even less than half a minute, changes into so many things: release, revenge, joy, power. That one moment, it's as though, well, it is, your character has built, that's what's been underneath that character the whole time. And to suddenly see that in all of its complexity, just that one moment just blows me away.
Thank you so much. I mean, I always say this, but to receive these things from you, Kathy, is tremendous for me because
Oh,
we
well, thank
too.
you. But and the other thing in terms of evolving, again, I'm just so passionate about acting. I've given so much of I've given my whole life to it, but I'm passionate about it and talking to about the process of everybody. And anyway, I'm blabbing. I get very excited about all of it.
No, it's
I
great.
love that.
The history of it, the the evolution of it from, Junius Brutus Booth back in the 1800s, and then Stanislavski, and then, all the way up, and how it's evolved into something that's so incredibly subtle. How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel a change in your work? Do you feel like it's something you have to strive for? How do you feel about that?
It's so interesting because I've done a bunch of stuff that's been quite heightened in different ways. I was on a sitcom called Dairy Girls, and that was, the performances in that were quite big. I remember feeling a bit fearful, weirdly, before it came out, that I would go, like, what are people going to make of this? Because I think I was used to seeing male characters act that way and be very over the top, but a group of young women behaving that way, I was like really unsure how people would receive it. And then Bridgerton is also heightened in a sense, but I think it's a really good challenge often because the dialogue in Bridgerton can be very, dense and particular, and it's word perfect all the time. There's never a word out of place. There's no improv. There's no nothing. It has to be as it is on the page. But that's a good challenge as well, because I think, there's, everything that, evolved from Brando of, people sort of making these really naturalistic choices. And, I think, of course, there's a place for that. And there's a reason why that became the thing that it did. But it's interesting to be set very strong constraints and being like, it has to be word perfect. It has to be in this style. It's not really the real world. It's something slightly evolved from it. And then it's fun. During shooting Bridgerton, I also shot a show called Big Mood, in which was very naturalistic and modern. So switching from one to the other was great, because you go like, okay, if I've been stuck doing this, now I can go to this and then this. But I think it's a good thing.
Anna?
I feel like I'm probably not even trying to be subtle. It's probably just who I am. So if anything, if I do something that was a little bit more heightened, I might struggle with that. And so for me, like, I want to know, how do you bring it up there? Is it easier to do that for you, Nicola? Or do you feel like
I
subtlety
think
is
I don't know. I think I always feel like I should be doing something. I remember a teacher at drama school once said to me, we did a sort of devised piece very early on, and we had to do a bunch of different characters, and it was quite free flowing. But there was one character I couldn't quite get anywhere with, and I was getting really frustrated. And he pulled me out to the hallway. He said, "Okay, the most important thing is always make a choice. It doesn't matter if the choice is wrong, and it doesn't matter." And I think that really stuck with me. But then I also need to tell myself sometimes that, subtle is also a choice, and you can do that. And but I always want to feel like I'm doing something, if that makes sense. And also I think there's a lot of it. I always say to myself, like, don't ever be afraid to be embarrassed. Don't ever be afraid to be too big or do too much. You can pull it back.
Yeah.
It's just sort of just go and try it. And then if it's wrong, it's wrong, but that's okay. And yeah, it's nice to feel like you're in a supportive environment where you can make the crazy choice and come back to something that will work, hopefully.
that's amazing.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say, like, I needed to hear that today because I feel like it's so, like, Japanese culture is just like, we're very, like, we're more quiet. We like to just not say I love you to the person that you love. You're just like, thank you, or something like that. And so it's more subtle, and I struggle with it today, to try to make bolder choices. And so I really needed to hear that. Kathy,
One thing I was going to say, though, and I've thought about this, a friend of mine produced Tokyo Vice, which fascinated me. And I was wondering, now that you brought up the Japanese culture, I think maybe because the Japanese culture is very subtle, the acting, then so much more is revealed because of that culture. And that I find fascinating, that you see so much more on the faces. The guys who were in the Yakuza and all, I mean, they were all like Brando. I mean, even more subtle. And I loved seeing that. And one quick thing I wanted to ask, I feel like I'm taking over this whole thing. How many days did you each have to shoot each episode?
We shoot an episode in a month. Yeah, so it's about an 8-month shoot. Yeah, and it's just huge because there's so many different storylines ongoing, and to shoot the ballroom scenes, they could take about a week to shoot.
Wow.
They're just a huge production, yeah. And we do a lot of setups. They've got all of the fanciest cameras and the cranes and the drones and yeah, so we do a lot. I brought actually a family friend to set the other day. I was filming and they couldn't believe it was a very tiny scene. And they were just, it's funny because you forget we're so used to it, you know. And they were going, but you've shot it now, so it's done. I go, no, no, now the camera will move and they'll listen. We'll do it again. And they're going, oh, okay. I always find set visits funny. People find them so exciting for the first 20 minutes and then they go, oh God, this is taking ages.
What about you, Anna? How many days did you shoot each episode?
Shōgun, I did 10 months, another actor did 11 months, and it's a 10 episode show. So I would say about roughly a month. But that was only because we also pushed and there was a lot of translating on set. And we were all walking very slow to the set. So I feel like if we were able to, skip all the translations, it would have been a little bit quicker. But
Well, and also your costumes for both of you.
yeah,
It must have taken hours to put those things on. It takes a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, Kathy, you're asking these great questions. I want to hear your answers. How quick do you shoot an episode of Matlock?
Oh, I wish we had 9 days. We shoot 8. We shoot 8 days, and that's the other thing is that I was interested because I feel that I really wish we had more time.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, I had a lot of time to prepare the role, to create. It was like creating a role for the theater, really. That same kind of prep work, breaking down the script, breaking down the character. I have a very close friend I've had for years and years, and we chatted a lot about my experience as a human being and how that, what of that comes to the character in a very powerful way. But then as the episodes go along and you don't really know what the next, we had an arc, but when you actually see the episode on the page, it's not something you've ever seen before. So, and you're working really quickly. You can't take too many takes and you've got to keep going and you've got to keep moving. And we did 19 episodes. And I found in the middle, I got really, really tired. Yeah. And so they were able to get a body double for me so they could shoot over her for some of the big courtroom scenes so I could have a breather. And so I wish we had more time for prep for each episode. I find that really frustrating. I used to say in the old days, they're filming something, they're photographing something that's not ready to be photographed. And when I worked with Jessica Tandy, God rest her, years ago, she would call it her kitchen work. And you really want the dish to be ready, and it takes time for it to become soup or whatever it is that you're making. And the other thing that I want to try to do, and it just kind of clicked into place, I don't want to play the character. I want to be the character.
I mean, I would too. I want to be Maddie as well. So I understand that. She's a badass.
It's fun. It really is a lot of fun. And everybody's so happy with the show. You can feel the energy, the excitement on the set. And well, after the pandemic, after the time that it took for the unions to negotiate, everybody was just so glad to be back working.
Yeah. Especially when you're having to prepare for like these big emotional scenes, like you all have huge undertakings, and I'm thinking of specific moments. How do you sort of like take care of yourself? First you prepare for those scenes, especially if you might not have much time, but then, are you the kind of actors that take your work home with you at the end of the day, or are you able to let that go?
Kathy,
You should endeavor not to, but sometimes you just do. It's a funny thing. Like I knew what an undertaking Bridgerton was going to be, and the hours are long, but probably not as long as the hours you work in the States. And I don't know about in Japan what kind of hours you do, but I remember visiting set in the States and I was talking about our hours, and they were going, no, we do way more. I was going, oh my God, because I do like 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. door to door, and so that's what I was doing last year, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, I prepared for it and I was very practical. I was like, I'm going to make sure I go to the gym enough times a week. I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to like do therapy just to get, I was like, just mind, body healthy, then, leave the space for everything else. I didn't have much of a life, I'd say, when I was doing it, but I was like, I have one chance to lead this show and I'm really going to just try and give it everything.
What about you, Kathy?
In the creation of the character, there were two or three, I call them engines, two or three really powerful moments in my life, very deep, very personal, things that I don't talk about. And they are, to use the kitchen analogy again, it's a yeast, some of it's yeast, and some of it's keeping the pots on the back of the stove so that I can use them. And it's been a process over the years to be able to use that and not hurt myself.
Mm.
And sometimes, most of the time, I'm good. Every now and then, and it's like a friend of mine said, my dear friend Philippe, who it's like an apothecary chest. His teacher used to tell him that he would pull out and use this drawer, and he'd put it back, or he'd use this drawer. And I'm finding for Matlock, it's like an apothecary chest with the little drawers that come out, so that maybe I'll pull out two for this particular scene, put them away, pull out the big dangerous drawer for that one. And it's all, of course, internal. And but the more I work with it, the more I find that I can, like for a big emotional scene, there was one that I had when I was talking about my daughter. We have a wonderful director, Kat Coiro, and she guided me into, instead of being totally devastated and sad, there has to also be joy, as we would when we're talking about somebody that we've lost, and how you feel the hurt and the pain that that tremendous loss, but you also feel the joy of remembering the fun things that you did. So you can do all of that in a space of 2 minutes. I find that's the craft that sustains you. And to be able to practice that, it's like Nicola was saying, to be able to practice your craft, the opportunity is tremendous. I always say it's like being a pilot of a plane. You have a certain number of hours in the air. I think Meryl Streep is unbelievably talented, but she's also had the hours in the air, right? Yeah. Because she's had so many opportunities to really work and do all of the stuff that she does. So there's a facile sounds like a bad word. She has the facility and the deftness in her work to create roles like Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
Anna, for you, how do you sort of take care of yourself and prepare for those big scenes?
I feel like I read the character for so long, and when I would go home, like I wasn't completely myself. I don't think I ever had like a very joyful laugh during the shoot of Shōgun because I had to be Mariko, and so I was dreaming similar dreams, and so it came quite naturally because her big scenes are also towards the end, which meant I was carrying the character for 8, 9 months. And then we were having that scene. And so it felt like everything was bottled up and I was finally able to just release it. And so I just feel like, yeah, staying in character. And I don't think that it's healthy. I wish I could just, go home and just be myself and have a good laugh. But it was also during the pandemic, so I wasn't really seeing my castmates.
You were working during the pandemic?
Yes.
Hard.
I feel like when everything was shut down, we were all shut down too.
Oh, okay.
But, once everything started to pick up, we were testing every day and going to set. But still, I had to be cautious because when you're playing, And like if you're in on set every day, then you don't want to get COVID. And so even on your days off, like you're not really, going to see anyone. So just carrying that character for so long, I think just prepared me naturally. And if anything, it just was a sense of release. And I got to just have fun to finally be able to execute the power that she's been holding this whole
Do you
time.
do you think because of going through that that you felt there was that in your own life there was a sense of isolation that translated into the loneliness of the character?
And I think that loneliness is so important to Mariko because her family is
Say that again. I'm sorry, my little dog is coughing. She's got collapsing trachea. She's so old.
If she wants to make an appearance, she's allowed.
Well, you can say hello. Hello, Zizi. She's very, she's very pretty, but she's old and she's just not very well. Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
sorry.
So I couldn't hear you very well, though. Can you say that again, Anna? Did you feel an isolation during that period?
absolutely. I felt it so much, and I think that I'm glad that I went through it because it really helped me play that loneliness on camera as well. But when people ask me, like, did you have fun on Shogun? It wasn't fun. It was the most show I've done, but so rewarding because I was able to just really, be truthful to the character.
Aren't we
But
so lucky that we have that though? Isn't it amazing that we get to like dive in like that? But I think like, people become actors because they're so fascinated by human nature and different human beings that we get to like step into their shoes and play as them. And I feel like you learn so much about if like we're all so lucky we've had the chance to do this, but like, dive into them and learn something, and you can learn something about yourself and take away from it. And it leaves you changed. I think every job leaves you changed in a certain way. It's amazing.
And all your characters are so amazing. Like I would think maybe if you were playing like a serial killer or something, it would be like a lot harder. But like to be in the headspace of these three women, I think it would be kind of awesome. I would like taking them home with me most of the time. Do you find that do you feel about them pretty affectionately?
Kathy?
Um, well, I feel like I take her home because when I go home, I have to learn lines for the next day, because I found that, that you really have to be cold on your lines.
Yeah.
Because then if you're not, I was trained with the Meisner method, and basically you can only think about one thing at a time. And if you're thinking about your lines, of course, you're not working off of the other actor. That's how I was trained. And so it's a bit of a struggle to learn the lines as you're going along and get them really cold so that you can focus on the other actor. That's a really big challenge working so quickly.
Yeah, massively. We get a lot of rewrites on Bridgerton, and like I said, it has to be word perfect. So it's a big challenge. And I would spend so much of my time in the chair. I would just note everything and just read the episodes, read them, read them. And it's so you're right. It's just so important because then if you can see actors that are still learning their lines as they say them, on screen. I watch things back and I go, I don't know if you knew that as well as you thought you did.
Well, I was trained also that, with that Meisner method is that you learn your lines by rote. You don't assign any kind of emotional value to it at all, so that you get that, it's Stanislavski said, the secret to an actor's creativity is the object of his concentration. So I find I get my performance from Sky or David or, a wonderful guest actor. I always get my performance from the other person. It's like a high wire act. What do you guys think about that?
It's so nice to come to set and read with the actor, and then suddenly you're surprised with what you're feeling because how you read it was completely different. And so it's hard though with not hard, but I think that it's completely different on shows like Bridgerton and Matlock. But for Shogun, because it is a period piece, everything's so structured. Well,
Yeah.
actually, no, Bridgerton is, but I feel like The language that we spoke on Shogun was period Japanese, which I had no
Yeah, wow.
and so for me, like going to set and just hearing the other person say it in any way, like it was just so refreshing and fresh. And so I think I was able to react quite freshly, but also very internally. So, what was it like for Bridgerton? Like, was there a lot of improv on it? Um,
So
how,
it's super there's no improv whatsoever, and it was interesting. I think back to, this is my sixth year on the show, which is crazy because we started in 2019. But I think the first year I was very much like, okay, it has to be this way, has to be this way, has to be this way. And I think over time I've found it's interesting because I've grown with the character and sort of found my own version of looseness in it. And sort of it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge to try and find how to make that dialogue feel naturalistic and, where the thoughts are and all this stuff. And instead of feeling constrained by finding it as a challenge. But no, I think it's more. I find the improv in the movement, if that makes any sense at all. But it's like, how it's interesting it being period, but then it being sort of a play upon period, but also, having the physical restraints that they would have had, but also remembering they're real human beings. Sorry, I feel like I'm going off on 20 different thoughts now. But yeah, I think definitely it's always nice to, I never want to go on, I think I would apply this across any job I ever do, know exactly what I'm going to do when I go in
You
the next
don't
day.
want to. You don't want to.
No, because then you're saying, well, I don't want to react. I
Yeah.
don't, I what I want to do. I know what will be good. And I find that especially in comedy that, you have to be so ready. And I loved getting to do the sort of romantic comedy scenes that we had in season three. That was really, really fun because, it just gives you a chance to flex those muscles. But I think in those situations, you read a thing and I think, okay, I know how that could play in a funny way, but you can't know until in the moment and how the other actor is going to react. So, and I think it always elevates it. It's never going to be as good you doing it in your kitchen.
Yeah. I find though, when I'm going through my script and breaking it down, I really want to think about um, the possibilities for a scene, the different,
Mm.
I don't want to, well, I want to be sure that I've thought about all of the um, all of the ideas that I might have. I want to put them all down. I don't want to go and watch an episode and think, should have done that.
yeah.
I want to try and see if I can suss out all of those things and try different things just so that I have that in the back of my mind. It's not like I'm wanting to play it a certain way, but that I want to have those ideas about what's going on because I'm playing two people. She's pretending to
Yeah.
be somebody and then she is somebody, but then she's starting to merge and go in these different directions. As the kid that I'm playing with, Aaron, he was so smart. I was, my accent with him at home was getting more Southern. And I said, oh my gosh, my accent is getting more Southern. And he said something really profound. He said, well, it's because you're really enjoying being Maddie,
Oh, wow.
and and it's what's true in the character. She's really loving being a lawyer again. She's
Mhm.
really
Mm.
loving coming back to work because she spent a decade mourning her daughter and with her grandson the last 2 years because they've thought of everything, every possibility of what could go wrong. And it's taken them out of their depression and loss and given them an active way to honor her and and for Maddie to remother her.
Yeah.
And so I want to think of all those opportunities. And when I mark up my script, I use something called scriptation now, which is great because I can color code everything. I don't have to reprint everything. I don't have to, go through as the scripts are changing. And I can do it all in the program in the app. And I color code things like this scene is with the accent, this scene is normal, or whatever, less. And so it's a kind of intricate way. And there are the stage directions, but Jenny Snyder-Urman, who created the show, has given me also what's going on underneath with Maddie.
Ooh, okay.
So that I have to, and I want to incorporate, okay, in this scene, because I might not be thinking of it in the same way that she means it. So I need all of that in order to be able to do it quickly.
And do you have her on set?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, she'll come. Like we've had many different kinds of directors, for example. And if there are things that are maybe not gelling quite, then she'll come down and she'll hang out with the director and she'll correct us. Like she'll say to me, "That's not what I meant." She never says that's not what I meant, but she'll say, "That's what's happening here, and I want it to be this way," or whatever. And it's been so helpful to have her there.
That's amazing. I'm actually so sorry because I know we're out of time, and Kathy.
Are we? No, really? I spent the whole time talking. I've just monopolized everything.
People are here to hear you, so that's fine. But I am sorry we're out of time because I think you were just about to tell us who at the law firm hid the documents.
No.
I have my theories. But again, I want to
say, fasten your seatbelts.
Oh, I'm so excited.
This has been such an honor to spend this time with you guys. I wish we had more time to talk.
I know. Love to do it in person.
Yeah. You'll hopefully all see each other at the SAG Awards.
We will. We will.
Yes. Please so.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time also and sharing your craft with your fellow actors. It's so appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.